in a stadium, when it's actually being deployed, kind of what are some of the more challenging areas? And I've heard of different things, from stadiums. We've seen different things. We've deployed different ways, right? APs under seats, different stuff that sometimes I'm like, well, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. You got to penetrate, signal through a body now, right?
Right.
So, I mean, what are some of the things you're seeing as a kind of
Yeah.
standard?
So I mean, when you look at a stadium and arena, it's built for line of sight because it's trying to promote the product on the field, right? And that's encumbered if you have pilings or if you have something in the way. So it's kind of the exact opposite of how somebody would approach designing a Wi-Fi network, which is where could we have this RF be absorbed, contained, reuse the spectrum, so on and so forth. So it is a difficult design challenge, as you know. So there are really four or five different ways that people approach it. The overhead is the most common, but when you're in an open bowl stadium, there is no overhead. So sometimes you can shoot it from behind, and there's some approaches to that. You have to have enough slope to overcome the human absorption. So it's overhead from behind. Underneath the seat seems to be the primary method now, but that comes at a cost because it costs a lot of money to X-ray that concrete, do core drills, run the cabling and so forth. And then there's also a approach of handrails, and that like everything else in wireless, the answer is always it depends, right? The angle that it is, and is somebody going to lean up against it and basically violate OSHA rules for us and things of that sort. But
ADA compliance, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And so when we work with partners and stadiums, we look at what's available, because the first thing is it's similar to the municipal work that you do or the stadium work that you do. It's PBS, right? Site acquisition, power, and backhaul. Those three things need to be accounted for. And you can build any network as long as you have those three things, right?
Well, and every wireless technology is asset dependent, right? You have to install it on something, right? There has to be something where it has to be mounted to serve an area. If there's not an asset there, you can't serve the area. You're going to have a gap in coverage, right? So.
Yeah, the good thing in terms of underneath the seat, it's usually about 3 times the cost of other deployment models. Okay. But it does give about a 5 times better performance, right? Because now you're really containing it down to a much smaller group, as opposed to being up high, and then you basically covering a much larger swath of people.
Yeah. Are you guys seeing different types of antennas? Like designs being incorporated now? I know, like in the outdoor space, right, to isolate RF interference, we use horn antennas a lot, right? Just because it can capture the signal, the energy, and send it in a specific direction.
We do have, and this is kind of contrary to Ruckus, we have some external capable access points or external antenna capable access points. And that just gives us a lot more flexibility, because sometimes, as great as beamflex is adjusting its patterns and so forth, you may have a situation where it's a corridor or something that's very unique, and you want the ability to use a much more narrow antenna, like a patch of some sort, or maybe a 10 degree or 15 or 60 or something like that. So we do see those, but those I would say is more of corner case situation, because it gets more complicated. We like to use existing ones that we have, and then we just kind of use it around obstructions, or use it it makes deployment a lot easier. And we do have, not to go down the beam flex track too much, but we do have some advantages in terms of the antenna patterns that we can generate.